So are there any assets that you should avoid putting into your trust? Hi, I'm Jim Purdy, an estate planner based in Florida, and today we'll go over 4 different things that you should consider not putting into your living trust, some that you absolutely should never put into your trust. So keep watching till the end, because placing any of these items into your trust can cause some costly mistakes down the road. So first of all, what is a living trust? A lot of people are familiar with the term, but just very basically what it does is it serves as a legal tool to manage and distribute your assets while bypassing probate. However, not all of your assets are suitable for inclusion in a trust. There are negative consequences for some types of property if you put it into the trust, and things like taxes or liability exposure or invalidation of certain protections. So let's talk about a few of them. First of all, vehicles. Why you may not want to do this. So it's relatively easy in Florida to transfer vehicles to heirs with a death certificate. So that's one thing. It's also a bit of a headache to transfer and get a new title for a vehicle. And when you transfer, or when most people buy and trade in vehicles every few years, it just doesn't make sense for your current vehicle. But you may want to consider for future vehicles, as you acquire them after the trust is established, maybe you would just acquire them in the trust to begin with, and then there wouldn't be any extra time or expense involved in funding it into the trust. And the second type of property that you never want to put into a trust is a retirement account. So if you have 401ks, IRAs, annuities, things of that nature that have tax advantages, you don't want to put them into the trust, because by putting them into the trust, you're actually changing the ownership from you individually to you as a trustee of the trust. So changing that ownership can trigger a taxable event, and you can lose a lot of your retirement benefits that have been saving up. So you want to avoid that. So the better solution, and what you should do with tax advantaged retirement accounts, is to name your trust as a beneficiary of those accounts instead. That way, the money from those accounts will go into the trust, and it will be dispersed in the way that you set out in your trust, with whatever protections that you set up in your trust as well. So that's by far the better option when we're talking about tax advantaged accounts like retirement accounts. The third type of property to consider is life insurance. Now, why wouldn't you do that? Well, proceeds of life insurance will bypass probate through beneficiary designation, so there's no reason to put the policy into the trust itself. So you have some options here depending on your planning, and you want to talk to your estate planning professional to really figure out what the best option is. You can keep the beneficiary as being somebody outside of your trust, or just as you would for your retirement accounts, you can name your trust as a beneficiary of the life insurance policy, and once again that will then pass with protections. So you may have children that you don't want them to just get $100,000 from a life insurance policy outright, so you have it come through the trust, and then you put in protective trusts in place to protect them against creditors and predators. And the fourth type of property that you would want to think long and hard about and perhaps not put into your trust are assets that don't otherwise require probate. So if you have bank accounts that have a payable on death or a transfer on death type of designation, or you have jointly owned property is going to pass to somebody automatically that you haven't planned for in your trust. There are some types of business properties that this is appropriate for. There may be separate marital property that you will want to keep outside of the trust. There's a lot of ambiguity in this type of property, only because you need to truly understand how that property is going to pass outside of the trust versus how it would pass inside of the trust, and then you make the best call for you about what makes the most sense for your goals and your planning purposes. Just keep in mind that putting any of these assets into a living trust has different consequences, and it needs to be thought through very carefully, and you need to make the right choices that fit your circumstances. Now that you know what not to put in your trust, or what you perhaps don't want to put into your trust, some of you might not know how to set up the trust or what to put into it depending on your circumstances. In fact, anybody who is considering this type of estate planning needs to talk to a professional who specializes in estate planning to make sure that you get the plan that works for you. You can book a free consultation with us, and we'll go through any specific questions you might have about what we talked today, about your circumstances, and start putting together the type of plan that is going to accomplish what you want it to. Also, make sure you check out my video about what is probate. That's a basic overview that you can find on this page as well.